Hello, welcome to another episode of The Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt. I'm a messenger with United Network News, and we are the news division of our network, which is called United Network. And our mission here is to bring you the real news. And our network releases a lot of content throughout the week. This includes in-depth news coverage, including local stories told through our amazing field messengers. We talk about restoration news and how we create this new earth that we all have this vision of that we know is coming to fruition. And then we have updates from the Global Intelligence Agency of what's really happening here on this planet in the ultimate battle of good versus evil. You guys are right here with us. This is what we do day in and day out. Many of us are holding the light. And this is one crazy battle, isn't it? This last week was no exception. We'll get to a lot of that in the GIA report. For now, if you want more information about us, you can head on over to our website, which is unitednetwork.earth. You can become a member and get all of our content the moment it comes out. Like I said, we release a ton of stuff throughout the week. All of it's video content. This is the one exception, audio primarily. But what this podcast is it's a week in review. So I like to take a look at the stories that we covered over the last week. Our format has changed over the last month and a half. And we're talking more in depth about different stories and how this impacts you. And I think opening a lot of eyes of, things that you may not have known were going on in the world. And it's, a more in-depth approach to that. Lots of sound bites, things like that. So it's kind of hard to watch everything. You guys are busy. You have stuff going on during the week. And so that's what this podcast episode is geared towards, to update you so you know what to go back and watch. Or if you want to share this with someone who isn't familiar with UNN, that's great too. Because like I said, we do have membership if you want to get the content right away. If you're okay with waiting a week, you can watch all of the news that we put out on YouTube and Rumble. So again, you have to wait a little bit, but if you're okay with that, then I don't know, you can save some money. And then this podcast, right? So you can access this, you can share it with other people. Obviously, this is completely free. And what we focus on is giving you guys real information so that you can lead your lives, so you can make educated choices about what to do with your life and how to help yourself, how to help your family. Because if you're just watching what they're saying on mainstream media and even all this alternative stuff, it is such gloom and doom. And, you're either on this side of the aisle or that side of the aisle. And it is all about pitting us against each other. But that is not our future. And so we want to give you a different perspective. We want to share stories from people all around the world because there is so much that unites us. I know it doesn't seem that way if you watch all these other media sources. That's their game. They play the separation game. But we believe in bringing people together. That's why we're United Network News and United Network. All right, so no real announcements today. We have not launched the New Earth show. We had New Earth segments that were part of the last news format we had. We have every intention to start that back up. We're still kind of figuring things out with the news. We made some changes this week, the content and writing team. We're going to make some of the stories on the news a little bit shorter. So we're still figuring out the format because we made some really big changes. So once that is set, once we feel comfortable with that, we will bring in this new show that's all about the new earth. I've actually done several interviews for the new show. And I had some people reach out to me this week like, hey, did my segment run yet? I'm like, not yet. We're working on it. We're working on it. So we're really excited to do that. I love talking about new earth stuff. I love, educating people about different technologies out there, different ways to heal yourself. Different inventions, spirituality, and what does that mean? And what is our world going through right now? I think that's all fascinating stuff. So that is still to come. In the meantime, here's the rundown of stories you may have missed this week on UNN. let's kick things off with our beautiful field messengers. These are everyday people who take out their cell phones. They show us what's going on in their community. Sometimes it's just the smallest thing that, just kind of jumps out at you in the world. And you're like, I really wish I could share this with other people. Those are those beautiful moments that we're looking for. You don't have to have a lot of experience. This isn't about being some sort of hard-hitting news reporter. We've had decades and decades of all that nonsense, right? And we know there's an agenda behind most of that. What we want is what stands out to you. What do you think other people need to know? What's going on in your community? So it's real easy to do. Like I said, we all have these little cell phones that we carry around with us and probably look at way too often, right? So let's use it for good. When something's going on, take it out, show us what's going on, record a little voiceover with it. We do have a Telegram group for our field messengers. Even if you've never submitted a field messenger report before, that's okay. You can join this group. You can meet other people. That's where you can post questions. We've got our producers in there. And it's really just about you guys recording the content, sending it to us, and then we put it together. You don't have to know anything about editing. So let's go through some of our field messenger reports from this week, just to give you guys some ideas of stories you may want to go back and watch. And a lot of this is visual, but I'll do my best to kind of break things down for you. All right, Adaria out of Montana, which is in the U.S. This is one of those stories that she was kind of in the right place at the right time, and something really struck her, and she thought it would be a good idea to share it with the world. We called this One-Armed Guitarist. So Adaria was at a farmer's market, and there was a guitarist there from Hamilton, Montana. And he says he does a lot of stuff with wounded warriors. He's actually not a veteran, but he has a lot of common with other veterans. There's been a lot of veterans that no longer have certain limbs. This guy does not have, his right or his left? I can't remember right now. But he plays the guitar with one arm. And you don't see that every day. And it makes you appreciate different things. And this guy even appreciates other people, even though he's in that situation. And he's a ray of sunshine, really, to remind us to be thankful for what we have and to give back whenever possible. So I encourage you guys to check that out. Listen to him play his guitar. Then Kathy out of Texas, which is in the U.S., talks to us about Wings of Hope. It is a therapeutic equestrian center that provides healing for individuals that are facing physical, mental, or emotional challenges. I love this. I actually did not grow up around horses. I have some cousins that raised horses, but they lived about an hour away from me and my family. And I've heard from so many people how amazing horses are. And I can feel that even though I don't have that experience. And this is just a beautiful story of, I think they call it equitherapy. I think that's the right word for it, where you're working with horses on a therapeutic basis. And they really get us, right? They understand our emotions. We could be showing whatever on the outside, but they can really draw things out of us, help us heal in a very beautiful way. And so, yeah, Kathy shows us how this is done, how Wings of Hope helps people, and it's a really beautiful story. Simona out of Sweden shows us a tractor competition. She called it a competition. I guess it kind of was. It's really a way for people to gather together to see tractors up close and to appreciate the history of tractors. They had all sorts of tractors there, really old ones. I'm sure they had some new ones with all their bells and whistles. She interviewed this guy that's been on a tractor since he was 10. I'm sure he got off the tractor at some point, but he's been using tractors since he was 10. So in part of the video, she was talking about they had some sort of contest, she said, so the tractors to see if they could draw a straight line, like take their vehicle in a straight line. Because if you're, doing things with crops, usually you want to be, as neat and orderly as possible. And so I always wondered how they did that. Apparently it's just practice. Kind of cool. So Simona, thank you so much for your report. Jason out of Australia. He's actually in Perth, which is in Western Australia. He talks about breath work. There was a guy by the name of Marcel that came to his area, and he did a combination of breath work with water. So you've heard of like polar plunges, going in water that's extremely cold and what that can do for your body. It makes you feel amazing, apparently. And then combining that with breath work. That's kind of the thing that he does. And he talks about how important it is, how all of that's completely free, right? If you think about it, you could probably jump in some really cold water for free. Carefully, and breathe properly. And he talked about how Indigenous people have been doing this for years. I find it so interesting how different groups of people have been doing this for such a long time. It's like we had blinders on. Like if you would have told me 4 or 5 years ago that Indigenous people do this, we should try it, I'd be like, no, we're so far advanced. We're so far beyond that. Like, how naive. How naive were so many of us and thinking, oh, we can do it better now. It's just so interesting that we're going back to these natural methods. I think it's beautiful. Okay, Jill out of Central America. She was actually in the U.S. Virgin Islands, but I believe that's considered part of Central America. She goes underwater. I love her footage because I love to see all the beautiful creatures underwater. She's in St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands. She said it's an amazing place to explore marine life. And she just kind of records what's going on underwater. So she showed us, I wrote some of these down, an eagle ray, this amazing turtle, actually 2 different turtles. There was like a baby turtle, and then separately there was like an older turtle. A manta ray, an octopus, which was really hard to see because it was kind of, blending into all the sand and stuff below, and a moony, moony jelly, something like that. It's basically a jellyfish. I thought she called it a moony. Very cool to see everything underwater. She, took video of it. She actually showed us herself with her snorkel or, her mask. It was a pretty cool story. Monica out of Romania takes us for a walk through Romania and some amazing waterfalls that amaze visitors because of their stunning beauty. And I love waterfalls. One of the things that I really try to appreciate with waterfalls is not just its beauty, but the energy around it, the power of water. Right? Like hydroelectric energy, right? There's so many cool things that can come of it, but just being near water can be incredible. And moving water, waterfalls, things like that. Apparently, this area that Monica went to has some incredible legends surrounding it, which you'll have to hear her tell the story because I'll mess it all up. But it's really cool about the legend of the area and why the waterfall looks the way it does and what happened in the area. But she said she was also talking about hot springs. So apparently waterfalls can be really hot as well, which is cool because I think of waterfalls being like cold water. But she said, at least in this one waterfall she was showing us, she says it never freezes because there's all these incredible minerals in the area. And it's hot as well, so it's not going to freeze. And so kind of interesting area in Romania. Monica does a great job of just showing us really cool places in Romania. So we really appreciate her stories. Amanda is from Queensland, Australia, and she does an interview with an artist who uses her art to highlight the importance of trees. All types of trees, but especially trees that are indigenous to that area of Australia. Now, according to this artist, and I haven't double or triple checked the facts on this, but she said that Australia is one of the most deforested areas, which kind of surprised me. Maybe it's a per capita kind of thing, but she tries to work with landowners and educate them through her art about the biodiversity of the area and how do we get back to restoring biodiversity and nature, specifically in the Queensland area. Beautiful story. Kelly from Florida, which is a state in the U.S., takes us through and tells us about the Food Forest Abundance Project, which is a really cool project that empowers people and communities to grow their own food. And at least from what I could see in the video, Kelly interviews the founder of this project And it kind of looks like there was a building on the property, which we didn't see very much of, but we really saw the land. And he was talking, the founder was talking about how there was like nothing in certain areas. And within a year and a half, suddenly there were these, beautiful palm trees. And really a lot of this is about educating people about how they can do what they're doing on their land, how they can take that information and apply it elsewhere. And he also, there was a portion of it I thought was interesting, kind of towards the end of the video, where he talks about the benefits of chickens. Apparently they have chickens on the property. I saw some sort of chicken coop. And that's a whole other story. I've interviewed many people that have talked about the benefits of chickens. Maybe we'll have to do like a whole story just on why we should all own chickens. And it's not just for their eggs, their meat, or whatever. They do amazing things with the soil and, just restoring the land. And our final field messenger report is from Steve M. out of Alberta, Canada. And he tells us about how the forest is regrowing. It's the Boreal Forest. He says it's around Fort McMurray in Canada. And they had some devastation in the area. A lot of it burnt down in 2016. There were huge fires that went through the area. And our planet is so amazing because whether something happened naturally or, unnaturally, our planet has a way of restoring itself. And when fires rip through areas, it's usually, if it's natural, truly natural, it's because the area needs to be restored. And so sometimes the best way, how many times has this happened to you in your life? The best way to start over is to start from scratch again. And that's essentially what our planet is doing. So if fires naturally destroy, we view it as destroying. The planet views it as starting over. That's what you need to do. And so it's a beautiful story that Steve gave us about how these areas now are turning into thriving ecosystems, because that's what needed to happen. Beautiful trees are springing up. There's green now coming back, probably in a much more abundant way because whatever was there got cleared out, right? So just something to keep in mind, as we go through our lives. If you feel like everything is falling apart, you're like, oh my gosh, am I getting down to ground zero? Maybe that's what needs to happen. Maybe this is a good lesson for all of us. And here are some of the in-depth news stories we were working on this week. In Australia, the rising cost of living has driven consumers to turn towards more affordable ways to find food, okay? So we're all used to going to big supermarkets or whatever. And we talk a lot about other options, but what we're seeing in Australia is more people are now shopping at farmers markets and roadside stalls. So that's even a smaller, more individual way of perhaps getting, food directly from a farmer as opposed to a bunch of farmers, right? These local options offer stable prices, fresh quality, and a lot of people forget this, the direct connection to the producers. I've interviewed a lot of people, farmers, cattlemen, people like that talk about, listen, you need to know where your food is coming from. When we shop at a supermarket, we know it came from whatever supermarket, but where was your food sourced from? We're losing that connection to our land, and we're getting sick as a result, because we don't know where our food is truly coming from. We're relying on things like labels and whatever, and there's a gazillion problems with all of that, as we've been reporting on recently. But if we really got to know what animal, at least what farm, our food came from, I think we'd all be a lot more healthy. And it helps small producers as well. You don't have to go through all of these middlemen. There's a lot of direct sales going on. It increases their profits. It fosters a sense of community. And that's an idea that's really become lost.
I just wanted to say that we as consumers have a role to play here. If you've got a farmer's market in your neighborhood, for goodness sake, support it, because then it's a direct relationship between you and the grower. And farmers work so hard to produce this food for us. And also, I'm really sad to see the end of the local greengrocer, the end of the local butcher. We have to do our part and support our local businesses.
Yes, absolutely. Support locally whenever you can. And doing that will spark innovative solutions like app-based food hubs. This is happening in Australia. Honesty-based roadside stands where someone sets up a stand, they set up whatever their goods are, and then there's a way to do some sort of transaction without them being there. So maybe there is a place where you can drop off cash, you can do some sort of app purchase, but it's based on the honesty system. Now, I know that sounds crazy for some people, but I think that's where we're going. I really do believe that. So, great story out of Australia. Now, let's talk about homeschooling, and this is near and dear to my heart. As some of you guys know, now my girls, so I have twin girls that are turning 11 in 2 days. They'll be 11 on 11/11. Isn't that cool? They are now being homeschooled. We're actually unschooling. We're kind of doing our own thing. But hey, they're out of the public school system. So this story was particularly interesting to me. We have seen, and we're talking about in the US here, but really this is a worldwide story. Ever since the COVID, whatever we want to call that whole nonsense, more and more parents are choosing to educate their children in different ways. They estimate that, at least in the US, there's about 3.7 million children that are now homeschooled. And it just creates a lot of flexibility for the parents. It gives them peace of mind. A lot of parents are concerned not only about what their kids are learning in school, they're concerned about safety. How often do we see about some sort of unsafe thing happening at schools? I get notices once every couple weeks, or, recently I was getting multiple alerts every week of fights at my son's school, high school. And he goes to a good school, you guys, like one of the best schools in the state. And they're having fights and, police are being called to the school. I'm like, what kind of world are we living in? But there's other issues, right? The curricula that's being taught, standardized tests, all of these different things. And it's not just parents that are looking at this, but it's parents who are also teachers that are going, you know what? I know what's being done in the school system, and these parents are right. You can do this at home.
So why are former teachers and educators homeschooling their kids? Well, first, we know it's not that hard to do, and especially with the myriad of resources out there, from amazing curriculum to all of the social outlets and sports and co-ops and classes, and it's really easy now to give your kids a rich childhood and education. In fact, the one thing being in education for 20 years has taught me is that you do not need to be trained as a teacher in order to teach your kids.
That's a pretty powerful statement when teachers are saying that, right? I know from personal experience, homeschooling is a way to really create a love for learning, not, hey, you've got to learn this, this, and this. It's more about what would you like to learn? What is of interest to you? And I also encourage my girls to critically think. I encourage all my kids, but my older boys are still in the system. So it's a whole other ballgame with that. But I'm spending a lot more time with my girls. They're doing things around the house with me, not just errands, but they're learning how to be good citizens. They're learning how to properly take care of themselves. This is all part of learning, even though it may not come from a textbook. There's so many kids that graduate and don't know how to take care of themselves. Like, what in the world are we doing? More and more parents are waking up. More and more parents are saying, no, not for my kid, not anymore. And I think these numbers, yes, we're talking about the US, but this is, a worldwide situation. We're all going through this. We're all kind of waking up from this really long dream going, yeah, why did we do that? Why did we eat this? Why did we drive these kind of cars? Why did we educate our kids like this? But I think the important thing is we are taking another look at this. We're asking questions and we're making changes, right? That's the best we can do. All right, let's talk about South Africa. This is one of those necessary stories that you really have to talk about. They are dealing with outdated sanitation systems. They are dealing with things like pit latrines and bucket toilets. These pose serious health risks, And it also undermines human dignity. Like sometimes we forget about this because living in the Western world, it's like, we've got toilets and, flowing water and things like that. But imagine not having that. And it's not that the government hasn't done anything to help. Apparently, there was a bucket eradication program in 2012, which seems like forever ago. But, this was a program to, try to get these kind of systems out and replace them with other things that would be more effective and healthier. But they say the progress has been very slow and fragmented. It's been hindered by bureaucratic delays, budget mismanagement, infrastructural challenges. We could go on and on. But there are areas where these facilities, they weren't that great to start with, and they are degrading. They don't have modern flush toilets, or at least they don't have it consistently. And like I said, it's very unsanitary. These situations are unsafe. With some of these, they have these in schools, and children have died from falling into a hole that's a pit latrine, right? So it's a deep hole, and children have fallen in and died. So it is a very difficult situation. We're raising awareness about this. This is definitely one of those areas where we need restoration. There are certain things that all humans should have, no matter where you're at on the planet. You should never have to worry about food. You should never have to worry about water. You should never have to worry about a home. You should never have to worry about where you use the restroom. And is it safe and sanitary? So definitely one thing, amongst many, obviously, that we have to fix as part of the restoration of our planet. Guerrilla gardening. That's kind of a fun topic to talk about. Most of you probably know what this is. Maybe you don't know the term around it. Guerrilla gardening is a grassroots movement where individuals and communities take these neglected urban spaces and they turn them into lush green havens. It probably doesn't even have to be an urban space. It could be any place, but it's done without permission, so it's a little hush-hush. It's a form of activism. So, for example, you could beautify empty lots, empty places near roadsides. You can create thriving gardens that support biodiversity and community. And it's not just about something looking good, but guerrilla gardening promotes environmental health. It helps reduce air pollution and even heat in urban areas. There's a lot of natural ways to do that. And it just helps with the community and the mental well-being of the people that live there. So we talk a little bit more about this and how it's done and how neighborhoods are being reshaped as a result, one flower at a time or one tomato at a time, however you want to look at it. All right, we also did a story about toxins in these artificial fragrances that seem to be in everything that we use. And, this is one of those things that it kind of makes me sad to hear about because I love when things smell pretty. I love having natural flowers around the house and, opening up the windows so you can get fresh air, things like that. So I love scents. I've never been a fan of what is that? Perfumes and things like that. That's always felt very synthetic to me. But I like, sniffing my shirt after it comes out of the laundry. But here's the raw of it. These things have a lot of toxins in them. It's everything from, the stuff that is in our detergents to our cosmetics to our cleaning supplies. How many times do you pick up, something that you're spraying a countertop off with, to clean it better? And it's like lemon scent. It's not natural lemons. There's chemicals and carcinogens, allergens, neurotoxins in all of this stuff. Now, here's the crazy thing. At least in the U.S., companies are not legally required to disclose specific ingredients. It's not like food products, although there's a lot of issues with that, a lot of loopholes with that too. But they don't have to disclose this stuff, which leaves consumers unaware of potential dangers.
The level of how fragrances have penetrated our society, trash bags, every laundry detergent, every cologne, it's even in food packaging. It's almost as powerful as a drug. I would say it's as powerful as a drug. So fragrances are one of the things that really should be eliminated. And I don't know how they're allowed to get away with this. It's really, really toxic.
Yeah, I mean, it's because of these loopholes. Trust me, when you start to go down that rabbit hole, so many ways to get around of all this. And, the sad part is it's our children. It's people with sensitive skin. All these people, the elderly, they are all more vulnerable because their immune systems are more vulnerable. And we want to protect ourselves. We want to protect our loved ones. So really what we should be doing is looking for fragrance-free or naturally scented alternatives. Be careful even on the packaging with the natural stuff. They'll say natural flavors, and that is not natural, right? But using essential oils as a way to, make things smell better. I do that in my bath and stuff all the time. I try not to get things that have scents, but then I'll put, some drops of essential oils in the bath with me. It smells amazing. My skin feels amazing afterwards. What we want to do is expose more people, meaning expose the information to more people about all of these toxins so we can have a healthier, cleaner lifestyle. All right, in Australia, youth crime in Australia is often highlighted as being this big crisis in the media. There's a lot of information about there if you go searching for it, if you're not already familiar with this topic. There's also official data showing an overall decrease. But what we found is when you examine this, different areas are basically changing their laws as to how old someone has to be in order for it to be considered a crime, which is, or not considered a crime, but being basically considered an adult, right? So what we did in this story is we kind of broke down specifically in Australia what these different areas are doing. So I'm going to give you some examples here. It says here, the age of criminal responsibility varies by state, which it does. So some, like, for example, the Northern Territory, controversially, say that 5 times fast, lowered their age to 10 years old, while New South Wales reports a slight increase in youth crime, largely due to fare evasion. It says Victoria has seen a recent 30% surge in offenses amongst 14 to 17-year-olds. And these different crimes, like if we take out the whole component of people changing the age that something, becomes an issue for these youngsters, a lot of this has been driven by social media influences. That's what the research shows. And what they're trying to do, what they're hoping will work, is that if they catch this younger and have harsher penalties for kids at a younger age, that will deter them from doing this in the future. Queensland's, that's hard to say too, government is pushing for youth offenders to face adult penalties for serious crimes. However, there are experts that are warning that tougher sentences alone do not address underlying issues. Because here's the thing, guys, if people are acting out, you can slap them on the wrist, okay? I'm not saying there shouldn't be some sort of penalty for that, but at the same time, you have to get at the root of what is causing this. And this is what they're talking about when they talk about underlying issues. It's like trying to treat a disease and you're just treating the symptoms. Why don't we get to what's actually causing the problem to occur in the first place? So in the case of crime, we're talking about poverty. We're talking about cases of trauma, low education. All this is contributing to youth crime, and it's a big deal. It's something that has to be addressed. Our whole, don't get me started on this, but our whole prison system, jail system, all of that was just a money-making scheme for the elite. All of that has to be addressed as part of restoration. All right, tuna, as in the fish. Tuna. We did this kind of expose, a little bit of an expose on tuna. Some people are really scared to eat tuna. Tuna is a nutritious, protein-rich seafood that the world enjoys, but the concern is the mercury content. So mercury is a neurotoxin, can accumulate in large fish like tuna. Although smaller tuna species like skipjack have lower mercury levels, larger ones such as albacore and bluefin carry more. And if you get too much mercury in your system, this is very dangerous, especially for children, for pregnant women. It has led health authorities like the FDA to recommend limiting tuna consumption, hence all of the headlines out there about tuna, which is why we're doing this story. And again, people are starting to ask questions. Why is the mercury so high in this? What can we do about it?
There's certain types of tuna that are good and certain types that are not so good because they contain 3 times as much mercury. Now, the problem with mercury is it interferes with certain enzymes involving selenium. And certain fish have more selenium than others. And so the mercury that's in the environment, it's in the water that the fish are exposed to, might not affect you too much if there's high amounts of selenium, because selenium can counter this mercury. But you have to realize if there's too much mercury, it can lock up these selenium enzymes, rendering them inactive. And this can create a whole series of mercury toxic symptoms, okay, like tremors, headaches, nausea, insomnia, weak muscles, twitches, mood swings, and there's a lot of other symptoms as well.
Yeah, that does not sound good. I would think twice before putting anything that had mercury in my shopping cart, right? But there's the other side of it, that it can be very nutritious. It can be very good for you. So consumer advocates are calling for stricter regulations, more rigorous testing, clearer labeling, which we know is important. So just kind of keep an eye out on what you're consuming, especially things at risk for mercury. Electric cars. Oh, electric cars. What can we say about electric cars? So they are often promoted as this greener, cost-effective alternative to gasoline cars, right? The people that drive them, you're like, oh, they care about the environment. Well, not so much. We know that the batteries that they use, the lithium-ion batteries that they use to put into these cars, are tearing up our environment in just getting the materials needed for the battery. But then these things are catching fire as well. So we already know there's a ton of problems with these electric vehicles. What this story is about even the cost of these vehicles, because it's promoted as ultimately saving you money, right? You don't have to go to the gas pump to get money, blah, 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 blah. Well, is that really true? And what we found is, now every case is a little bit different. If you're able to keep your car, your electric vehicle around for a long period of time, which they haven't been around that long. So who's really keeping these around super long? Not a lot of people. But if you could, then could you be saving some money? Yes, if you got some of the tax incentives and things like that, and you weren't in a big fender bender. If you have to repair these things, they can be a nightmare, especially with insurance.
The real big added cost to owning an EV is probably your insurance rates, which, anecdotally, I'd say can be double an ICE vehicle is, just because the cost to repair these battery electric vehicles is incredibly high. They're extremely vulnerable to getting totaled out if you just do some minor damage to the car, because the battery pack extends from, to every side and corner of the car. If that battery pack, which is the single most expensive component of the car, gets damaged at all, usually it can't be repaired.
Wow.
At a collision center. The whole thing needs to be replaced.
So people just have to be aware, there's a lot more to it than just the base price of the seat.
So I want to leave things on a high note, not all gloom and doom, right? Because I don't like to do that. So if you've already purchased an electric vehicle, okay, the world is not going to end for you. If you have the ability to install a home charger and charge your car, that sounds so strange to me, charge your car during off-peak hours, that can really help control costs. Okay, if you do get into some sort of accident or something just quits working on it, that is still going to be an issue. But at least you don't have all the charges. I mean, there's articles out there if you guys want to search for them about the charging stations and, how the cost can vary. And if do you get a supercharger, that's going to cost you more money. Do you have a membership at this supercharger? All these different kind of factors. Whereas someone like me that has, a gas-powered minivan, could just pull up to any pump and get gas whenever I want. Now, can we do better than gas? Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm waiting for the flying cars. That's what I want. All right, it's time for highlights from the Global Intelligence Agency operational reports with Kimberly Gogan. So, oh boy, this week was election week, this past week, right? Here in the US. And that's pretty much what we talked about. Now, to give you guys a heads up, Kim was able to put out a GIA report on Monday and Wednesday. Friday, I have a statement that we released on Telegram for the GIA. So I'll read you that. It was kind of a crazy day on Friday, and I'm sure she's really busy right now doing all that she can to stop these crazy people after the election. So let's talk about this. In the last episode of The Rundown, we talked about how elections actually happen, how the voting for these candidates actually takes place. If you haven't heard that, if this is the first time you're hearing this or you missed last week's podcast episode, go back and listen to it because you really need to have a foundation for what we're going to talk about next. Here's a real quick recap. Last week, we talked about the fact that there were people waiting by a phone. I don't really think it's actually a phone. They were waiting to get some sort of message handed down to them about who the next president was going to be. Now, Kim has talked about this. This stuff is decided decades in advance. I know that's hard for some people to come to terms with because we all want to believe that what they tell us is the truth. We want to believe that we have this amazing ability to go out, to stand in these long lines, to select our candidate, and that our vote really counts. But that's not true. And we have to stop believing this fantasy because that's what it is at this point. It is a fantasy. The truth is that there were people that voted, and we talked about this in last week's episode. A very elite group of people that you would never know their names. There are no politicians you've ever heard of or anything like that. These people that were at the very, very tippy top of the food chain of planet Earth would cast their ballot. So there was a voting process, but you were never part of it. And so we are now at this position where these beings, because I'm not even sure that they were human, would cast a ballot, let's just call it a ballot, would vote. But here's the problem. Those beings aren't here anymore. Because when you take down a power structure, like the power structure of planet Earth, you start at the top. You don't start at the bottom. Now we're at the bottom because everybody else has been taken out. And this is not a white hat thing. Please don't, think this is a cue. White hats are going to save the day because that's all nonsense. But we have taken out a lot of people. And when I say people, it's not just people, beings, and everything was very compartmentalized. So if you think about kind of a pyramid, every time you would go down on the pyramid, the next person thought that, they were the cat's meow. And then you'd have to go down further. And now, I'm the head honcho. I'm in charge. So now we're at the base of the pyramid. And the issue that I see with this is that nobody really understood how the pyramid worked. So when you try to tell them how the pyramid worked, it's like they don't understand. Do not compute, does not compute. I mean, some of these people had chips in their brains and stuff to tell them what to do and how to act. Some of these people, their soul was swapped with some sort of, being from the lower astral, aka hell. So we're dealing with some really big stuff here. In this voting process, That's how a president would be selected, but it would have been probably done months ago. But it got to the point where, let's pick this up from Monday's report, the report that Kim gave on Monday. They were still waiting for something to come down the line because they never would have been able to vote. Okay, they were just waiting to hear the result, and then that allows them to do whatever they do to make it believable. Okay, because you got to make the public believe that whoever was selected by this elite group of people could actually get the job. So they were waiting for an answer. And during our last report, Kim wasn't sure. She made some comments about maybe I'll just elect my dog, because she knew they weren't going to listen to her anyways. But she is the only person at this point that could actually submit a vote. So she decided to submit a vote. And it was not for Donald Trump, and it was not for Kamala Harris. It was actually for Jill Stein. And she talks about why it was Jill Stein, because Jill refuses to have handlers. She refuses to allow anyone to control her. Even the Trump operatives and other operatives went to talk to her before the selection process, and she declined working with any of them. So when you look at the list of potential candidates, that is someone at least that can think on their feet, that is not willing to be controlled, which is why Kim decided to select Jill Stein. So she was selected and ratified in the Hall of Records as the official chosen person to be the next president of the United States. And this is how presidents are selected. This isn't a new system. This has been going on forever. You just didn't know about it until now. So the name came down. It's Jill Stein. Well, obviously, the operatives didn't like that. Although Kim does talk about, I'm not going to play a soundbite for it, but she does talk about how they were kind of like, should we go with Jill Stein? At least it would be a ratified candidate. The candidate would receive money because she's ratified, would go through the Hall of Records, all of that kind of stuff. There are some benefits, they were kind of weighing things, back and forth. Let's go ahead and play a soundbite, because they were discussing all the different possibilities of what they could do. So Jill Stein is selected and ratified behind the scenes, let's just call it behind the scenes, as the presidential winner of the presidential election. They get this information. Now, what do they do? So keep in mind, the election hasn't happened yet. This is actually, Kim gave the report on Monday, but I believe she placed her vote a couple days prior to that. So they had a few days, right? A few days before the election. What do they do?
Let's talk about possibilities that have been discussed all weekend long, and it changes like the wind right now. My 12-year-old daughter didn't change like the wind as quickly as these people are changing their minds. So, possibility number one, Trump wins, and they have to fulfill their promises. That means 247% profits, which doesn't exist, on pipelines and such throughout the Middle East, loads and trillions of dollars and contracts or other currencies to the entire military-industrial complex worldwide, larger corporations. I don't know if you've heard or not, but American Airlines allegedly has canceled all flights to Israel, to the Ben Gurion airport, through 2025. So this is, they're definitely preparing for something over there, and somebody's got to foot the bill. Just like somebody was supposed to foot the bill when they canceled a lot of flights or emergency flights only during the pandemic. And nobody has still foot that bill, but yet they still believe them and cancel flights anyway. So if they can't fulfill the promises, which they've been trying feverishly to do, then they are considering that Trump wins, option number 2, and the election is contested until they can, figure something out. So they're like, is there another gateway time? Is there another new moon, a full moon, an alignment with Uranus, a solstice, an equinox? There's got to be something we can think of while this is being contested in order to fulfill our promises. This is what they're talking about. And to get what they want, they really would like to decimate the Middle East. This has gone back to the days of Cheney. The plan is very old. It was not written by humans, but it was passed down through the ranks with promised funding, should they ever fulfill that plan, to the tune of $14 trillion. Now that contract has expired. There's nothing left behind it. There's no funding for it. Even if they were to be successful, there's still no funding for those types of contracts in currency. Okay, next, Kamala wins, and they bail on all their promises. This is also being discussed because behind Kamala, has there been a lot of operative promises around the world? Well, not really, because those operatives seem to kind of be the underdog in this situation, and the cowboys have kind of pretty much tried to take control, which is why you're seeing total chaos out there right now. Okay, next. Jill Stein wins. Well, poor Jill. Jill has been approached by many operatives. They are saying that they promised her lots of money, lots of funding, if she wins, however they would be handling her on behalf of their funders. They don't say who they are. Obviously, you know who they are. But she adamantly declined, which gives us another vote for Jill Stein, doesn't it? She adamantly declined any kind of handlers or deep state or, operative control systems, which kind of leaves them out in the cold. However, if you're talking to people at the Treasury Department or, at different heads of different departments within the government, knowing that she's a surefire ratified president, and that the U.S. would actually survive and wouldn't be scraping and wouldn't be dependent on a new moon, a full moon, or an alignment with Uranus or any other planet for that matter. That's sounding pretty good to everybody else, and they're trying to convince the operatives that this might be the way to go. So they've actually been talking amongst each other behind the scenes, thinking, well, maybe we can put the Secret Service out there as a front. Maybe we could get the Secret Service to manipulate her. Well, she's not that easily manipulated. And if you're thinking about doing something else more drastic, JFK-like, you have lost your ever-loving mind. So that's not going to work out. So these are all kind of things that are building up behind the scenes based on what happens tomorrow. Unfortunately, at this moment in time, the fighting is a little bit heated. There is no actual decision at this moment, which is almost unheard of because usually these things are decided months, if not years ahead of time.
So it sounds like they were considering other options, but were they really? We all know what they decided. So let's talk a little bit more about that. Kim, on Wednesday's report, so that was the report from Monday. On Wednesday's report, Kim talks about the SSP going to Balmoral Castle, which, if that sounds familiar, it should, because that is a castle. It's in Scotland. Technically, they say it's owned by King Charles, but I don't know. Anytime you hear about a castle that a royal owns, that's what their vacation spot or whatever they say they do at this. No. There's rituals, there's crazy stuff that happens deep under the castle and their crazy rooms and whatever. So the SSP was trying to get up in there to apparently, I don't know, open a portal, get some demon help, whatever. Did not work. Okay, I guess they felt like they needed a little bit of extra juice right around election time. What happened after the election? So Trump wins, according to them. Again, has nothing to do with our votes. And everyone starts reaching out to Kim. Apparently, there was a group of people that said, well, as soon as Trump wins, Kim is going to give out all of this money. And all will be right with the world.
Apparently, the Trump operatives, also known as the Secret Space Program operatives with Monarch or Umbrella, whoever they are these days, they had apparently told everyone, and I mean everyone, that after the election or selection, and if Trump was elected, then I would be ready to work with everybody. Odd things started happening throughout the day today. Actually, it started early in the morning, but throughout the day today, and they were telling Bank of America, we got calls from Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, the Trump attorneys, various people throughout Congress, and I'm trying to figure out why all these people now all of the sudden think that I'm going to be ready to work with these people. We also got calls from various countries in the Middle East asking the same question. Of course, the answer was no, I have no idea what you're talking about. And last but not least, since 2 a.m. this morning, the Space Force folks and the Trump operatives were at the Treasury building in Washington, D.C., using Trump's old terminal that I used to contact him on several years ago during the last administration, trying to call me. I was wondering, I'm like, do they even know they're calling me? And apparently they did, which was kind of weird. Why would they start calling me at 2 o'clock in the morning after the alleged selection results were in, at least behind the scenes? I think everybody else didn't hear about it till about 4 or 5 o'clock or so in the morning, my time. But I'm like, why are they calling? Do I answer? And I thought about it, and I said, no. They continued to ring this line till probably, I don't know, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, my time, until I made some phone calls. And I'm like, why are these people calling me? You know, I think I was pretty clear, not only on this channel here, but I was also really clear when I was asked if I was going to support this administration. And the answer was no. It was no across the board. I said it to all of you. I said it on multiple people's telephones. I said it to Tom Melville. I said it everywhere that this was not going to happen. I voted, and I voted on the same line that everybody else votes on. I gave a clear answer, and it wasn't Trump, and nobody did anything about it. Now, there is some other things that were going on, which could be a possible reason why they thought that this was going to happen. Apparently, the black nobility told the Space Force and everyone else that I would be ready after the selection. Now, to be fair, they were expecting some kind of gateway to open last night. I'm not sure where they got that idea from, but that was obviously a lie. There was no attempted gateway opening. There was no direct connection to anti-source or any kind of lower astral alien race that doesn't exist anymore. So I'm not sure what gate they're referring to. Don't know. No clue. But nothing has changed. I haven't changed my mind in any way, shape, or form. And I even warned them days ago and also yesterday that if this actually happens, I mean, number one, I know it's a lie. But there are many other reasons why I do not want to do business with these people. Number one, this is business. This is not personal. This has nothing to do with me being a female and me being angry with people, because that's what they always say. And they always say it's a female problem. You ladies know what I mean, don't you? Nope, not a female problem. This is simple, hardcore, straight up business. And by business, I mean you make a contract, you make a deal, you talk on a diplomatic line. It is agreed by the President of the United States, who was still breathing at the time, and you never follow through. Then you do it again, and you do it again. And why do you do it again? Because you're a patriot, and you think, I want to help the United States. I want to help the American people. And maybe this time he'll pay off the student loans or any other thing that was requested on that diplomatic line, which there is records of, which, if need be, and maybe I will do that as soon as I'm done with this broadcast, I'll take all those diplomatic line records and I'll transmit them to every intelligence agency in the world, because the deals were made the deals were cut. You sent everybody, Tom Melville, myself, running all around looking for treasury cards and going to the treasury in Manhattan, and we're going to pay you this time. And then allegedly Mnuchin told us that Bank of America would be the place to land the funds. We landed the funds over there. No one cleared our money. So you know what, guys? Simple, straightforward business. You people running the Trump administration or whatever that is have no idea how to do an actual business deal. What you do know how to do is you do know how to EBS. Everyone BS's in your entire group constantly. But this time the joke's on you because you're not the only ones that BS now, did you? You got caught with your pants down all over the Middle East. You'll never fulfill those promises. I will make sure of it because there isn't enough money in the world. Number one. Number two, that person is not me. It never was me. I was never going to do business with you people, and I don't care who said it. I don't care if it was the Vatican, the head of the Jesuit order, which I know that happened, the Orsini family, the Pallavicini family. I don't care who told you that because it's a lie. It's a flat out lie. I have no intention of doing anything with you people. And now you start calling me at 2 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, I got the call and yeah, I was awake. I know you guys all sat around the terminal because I watched you do it. You said maybe she's not awake yet. Maybe that's why she's not answering. No, I saw it. I ignored you. You know, take the phone off the hook, just ignore it because you know what? I'm not going to do anything with these people anyway, and the only thing they're going to do is lie to me on this diplomatic line and any other line for that matter, so why bother? So, what happens now? I hate to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. There is zero financial support right now for governments worldwide. They have lied to the American people yet again. They have told them that this person is alive. I don't care if they put the vice president in charge and take him out like a martyr, which is what you're talking about behind the scenes. So let's not lie to each other here now, will we? But you did. And you think you're going to do this and then everything is going to be okay because we have a breathing person now. No, you're still the same people that I did business with for 3 years. Don't think I don't know that. Don't think I don't know who you are, who you work for, and don't think I don't know that you're still trying to decimate millions of people in the Middle East based on money you thought you were going to get from me. Absolutely not. No, that's never going to happen. So as far as the U.S. is concerned, there is zero support for banks at the upper level. The banking system itself is stable, meaning there is nothing wrong with your bank accounts here in the U.S. or in any other country at this moment in time. It will continue to remain stable regardless of all the money the people at the banks thought that they were going to make. Of course, the Trump operatives promised them that, and they were shocked and surprised when they tried to actually call and reach out to us and say, hey, now we can go ahead and do business, just like you said. And I'm like, yoo-hoo, that you is not me. I don't know who you're talking about. I'm like, why would I be supporting all of this? We did get calls, like I said, the other day from Langley asking if we were going to support the financial system. Well, no, we're going to support the people. We're not going to support anything that would allow for you to siphon any funds out with your master encryption keys that you and the NSA and the ACIO lost earlier today. Didn't you? Yep, that was me too. And I'm going to continue to do that until I can directly fund people.
Oh, when will that day come, right, everybody? And Kim thinks that too. She's like, oh, come on, let's do this thing. So that is the nature of the situation. I have one more thing that I want to share with you before we wrap up this episode. As I mentioned, Kim was on and did a report for the GIA on Monday and on Wednesday, right? So that takes us up through, the last report was on the 6th. She would normally have done a report on the 8th, which was yesterday, Friday. However, things got a little bit more complicated, and instead she released this statement, which I'm going to read to you guys. It's also posted on our Telegram. It says, Monday is 11/11, and the deep state is in full force attempting to launch the anti-Genesis project with non-human technology in Japan, Mexico, Virginia, which is in the USA, Australia, and in Colorado, also the USA. The Trump operatives are still driving the Decimate the Middle East program by ordering Israel to continue striking Lebanon within the last hour. Again, this came out on Friday. The calls from the organization to this office and any associate I have spoken to, meaning Kim has spoken to, in the last 10 years, attempting to tell me, quote, things are going to change, end quote, and also to prepare to take credit for everything. So for us to prepare for them to take credit for everything that I, meaning Kim, has been doing, as you can see by the recently launched meme. So as part of this, she attached a meme. Apparently, it's been circling around of Donald Trump saying something about welcome to the golden age or something about a golden age under him. And if you have listened to his speeches, I know even his election acceptance, not election, his acceptance speech for the presidency, he talks about us being now in a golden age. Apparently, Trump is bringing in this golden age. This is their new genius plan. And I say that very facetiously because if you think that you can put Trump in office, even without Kim, okay? If you think in a golden age you can put a dead person in office and try to fool God, which is essentially what they're trying to do, because Source called this, it is now a golden age. We are transitioning now into this period of time. And that does not allow for all their antics that they've been doing for billions of years. You can't do that in a golden age. That will not be successful. But this just goes to show you that these people have no concept of what it means to be in a golden age. To think that they are going to take credit for what Source is doing? Are you kidding me? How big does your head have to be to think you could go toe-to-toe with the creator of the universe? Insane. These people are beyond insane. But actually, I didn't finish the whole paragraph that Kim put out. So wait, let me find my place. Okay, so we were talking about the meme because they're basically telling Kim, hey, prepare because we are now going to take credit for the golden age. Apparently, all this falls under Trump. Just because they put an orange guy back in office doesn't mean that the people are even going to believe that it's him doing it, because he has no control of the money that will be going, like Kim said, directly to the people, not going to governments. We don't need you anymore. Let me finish this. I'm on a roll, guys, but let me finish this paragraph here. So continuing on with what Kim said. So she talked about the recently launched meme. She says they are doing everything possible to fight against your connection to the creator Source. A full update as to what the Anti-Genesis project is will be given on Monday, as we are extremely busy pushing counterattacks and everything is still operational. End quote. So, for anyone who thought Trump was a good guy, and this isn't just about one guy, guys, because that's not even the real Trump. It's about that whole group of people that want to control this planet. And because you're on this planet, they want to control you too. And they will do whatever it takes, create whatever crazy narrative, say that, oh, Trump's in office, now the golden age. How long have we been talking about a golden age? This has nothing to do with Trump and everything to do with Source. So, you know what, guys? Whatever. Give it your best shot. Because this isn't even about us versus you. This is you versus God. Good luck. And on that note, I feel like I'm kind of preaching to the choir right now. I don't know. Maybe they're listening. Maybe something will get through that really big head of yours. Crazy people out there. For more information, you can always go to our website, unitednetwork.earth. That gives you on-demand access to all of our content. So that includes all the news updates, our New Earth interviews. You can look at the old ones, by the way, on the app before the new show comes out, so you can research all of that. Check out all the amazing people I've talked to. Our Global Intelligence Agency reports, you can get the full reports right when they come out, and all things restoration, because we are coming into a time where it is about the people. It's not about a presidency. It's not about a government. It's not about secret space program people that, think they're all that in a bag of chips. It's about you, and it's about your relationship to source, which they have no control over, and it scares them to death. All right, mic drop. This is The Rundown, and I'm Sunny Galt for United Network News, signing off.